Okay, I couldn't stop the countdown. Welcome to this evening's grief and loss. We thank you for tuning in tonight. Our stage looks a little different. I'm not quite sure what StreamYard has done, but we're gonna make it do what it do, despite we're circles tonight. Okay. So we want to say thank you for joining in with us on this evening. Make sure you let your family and friends know that we are here. Put your name in the chat. Let us know where you're listening in from. We want to say to make sure to give you an opportunity of time. We have a dynamic discussion we're going to be having tonight around grief and loss. So chime in, let us know where you're calling in from, not calling in, checking in from, looking in from, and put it in the chat for me, wherever you are listening. And then those that are going to be listening later, again, we get a lot of those that look at us later. Make sure that you leave your feedback even in the comments later, because we do respond, we do reply, and we are available even after the live. So again, thank you for joining us. We're going to take a deep inhale and exhale before we get going. You know, we got to always get present to the moment, to right now. And so we're going to take a deep inhale through the mouth, through the nose. You see, I need to breathe. No. And exhale through the mouth. Yes. Inhale, hold, and on the count of 3, we're going to exhale through the mouth slowly. 2 and 3. Yes, it's that breath that reminds us whose and whom's we are. We are created in the very image and after the creator of all life. And God is so bad. He's so bold. He's so audacious. He made us distinctly different and said we all in his image. How about that? We got both feminine and masculine. Gotta be so, because I'm here. How about that? How about you? Can you say the same thing? Because you here. So let's take another deep inhale. Hold. Yes. It is that breath that calls us family. And exhale on 3, 2, 3. Yes. You cannot do that. You cannot take a pause, an intentional breath, and not recognize and remember the creator who created you. You cannot do that and remember that you are divinely created to create divinely. I don't care what's going on, how you're feeling, what it looks like, the disappointments, the upsets, the grief, the loss, the joys, the good, the bad, the healthy, the unhealthy. We are all yet divinely created to create divinely. And so tonight, what we want to do, we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about, let me back up. First of all, Center of Empowerment. Who is Center of Empowerment? Center of, you notice we spell it a little differently, N-I-N, power, and then MENT, M-E-A-N-T, purpose. So Center of Empowerment is about centering, understanding the center of inner power purpose. What is your inner power purpose? And so our intention and our goal and our mission and our mandate is to support families in mental health. And that is support. A lot of our families are dealing with grief, loss, trauma, and caregiving. We're caregivers for those that we love. We have signed up as our profession. I'm a caregiver. Outside of my family life, I'm a caregiver. And sometimes our position that we sign up for is for caregivers. So our intention is to to make sure we are impacting the 4 pillars of life. So make sure you go to our website at www.coinpm.org. Again, that's coinpm.org. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down here at the bottom, because you might decide you like what's going on so much you want to give a donation. So we have some that is joining us. Make sure you put in the chat where you're checking in from. We have a dynamic guest tonight, and her name is Natalie Lamb. I like to call her Dr. Natalie Lamb. She does not have that on her resume, but I call her Doctor. How about that? Natalie Lamb has a vision to equip people with the power to change their lives, to teach them to choose purpose, freedom, and love. It's your choice to choose beauty or misery, love or hate, being bound or free. But nonetheless, you choose. This is her purpose with each word she speaks. She speaks to give life and healing into people's lives. Come on, put your hands together and let's welcome the one and only Dr. Natalie. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Iris.
Glad that you were able to make it tonight. I know. I think it was last month before last. You weren't. We actually recorded. Right. It was.
Yes.
We did the recording, and yours truly forgot to hit the live, hit the record button. It was a dynamic session. Oh my
It
gosh, it was a
was.
dynamic session. So we deduced that was obviously for us. No, right? That was obviously for us. And then when we re-recorded, you weren't able to join us. And so I want to thank you
Right.
for taking time out of your schedule tonight. Natalie, let me ask you this. Why grief and loss? What had you take on coaching as a grief and loss or life and grief coach?
So, what brought me to it was really the death of my mother. And that happened 22 years ago. Actually, 23, coming up on 23 in May. And that really changed my life, right? 20 something years old, not knowing anything about grief, just had a baby, and I needed to figure out how do you do this, right?
Mhm.
No one talks about it. It was taboo. It was just pretty much so she's in a better place. Praise God for that. Let's move on, right? And I could not move on. I was stuck. I was angry. I was lost. I was scared. I was all of the emotions that just kept rising. And I had a little girl, right? And I said, I have
Mhm.
to be her mother. So
Mhm.
therefore, I got to figure this out. And
Mhm.
I chose to research grief. And I looked at it from as many angles as I could, from different society, different types of people. I went back to the indigenous. I studied African tribes and how they looked at it. The Jewish people, how they looked at it. The natives, how they looked at it. Of course, our Western approach as well. And I formulated as a way of how do I do this, right?
Mhm.
And then in that, I'm like, no one's talking about it. So I
Mhm.
love to talk about the things nobody talks about, because
Mhm.
that means that there's a space for us that we're all lost in, and we need to be able to open it up and really have these discussions. And that's where I started doing support groups. And from there, it has kind of grown into what it's grown. But anyone that has lost, it's a lifelong journey. It's not
Mhm.
like you lose, you do these simple steps, you have these little 5 stages that everybody loves to throw out, and then it's over with, and you're supposed to get back to living as if it did not occur. It changes you. And I'm of the belief death is supposed to change you. It is supposed to make you different. We should not stay the same, but we have a choice. How will it change us? And the greatest questions we ask in grief is, who was I before and who am I now? And it's in the formulating of who am I now that we get the choice to choose how this will impact me. But realize that it's going to impact you. It either will level you where you never get back up again, or you
Mhm.
learn to ride the waves and you take a knee as often as possible, but you get
Mhm.
back up again, right?
Mhm. So how do you do that? You said a lot. I started the grief support, the caregiver and the grief support, um, as a part of my journey and as a part of the package of what I do and give is because of the transition of my mother. So
Mm.
how did you? I know you said you looked at the different modalities and how the different cultures honor those that have transitioned.
Yeah.
How did you and how were you able to apply that to your life and then share it with others?
So I think I stole a little bit. We can use that phrase. I stole a little bit from everybody, because of course everybody's grief is unique. So
Mhm.
it's also in that I try to teach is that your grief is going to be unique. You can lose the same person, right? We both lost our moms, but how we deal with it, how it impacts us, how it changes our life looks a little different, right? So I like to give an approach of these are all the ways you can look at grief. These are
Mhm.
all the ways you can deal with it. You choose. You choose which one fits because as the years go, we need to be able to grab different shirts out the closet, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
if we look at grief as an array instead of one single thing, then I see that I get to move, I get to ebb and flow, I get to not stay in one space because what healed me in year two is not going to be the same thing that heals me in year five,
Mhm.
right? It's not going to be the same thing that
Mhm.
heals me in year 10 and
Mhm.
going forward because it
Mhm.
keeps like unraveling,
Mhm.
right? And the thing is, because life keeps happening.
Mhm.
So, and we keep losing because that's life too, right?
Mhm.
So you have one death and then you're going to have to face other deaths. And how you do that is going to be different from the first death, right?
Mhm.
So how
Mhm.
I have dealt with my mom's death is very different now of dealing with my dad's death, which happened almost 5 years ago or 2021, whatever the 4 years ago.
That's 4 years
Um,
ago. Yeah.
4 years. Let me
Mhm.
subtract correctly,
Mhm.
right? It's a very different space
Mhm.
of how I deal with it, how it's impacted me. When I lost my brother 2019, very different. And so I have to be flexible. And the one thing that I always say is like you have to give yourself permission to be flexible in how you heal. But
This is good. So let me ask you this, because our theme tonight is you cannot rush grief. Because
mhm,
many times the thought process is, when is this going to be over? Or, and people are telling you it's time for you to get moving. It's time to get up. It's time to get going. It's time to, or, and our belief system is we trust, believe God, and either they're in heaven or we put everybody in heaven, but that's another subject. No. or, and we really haven't given ourselves, so I'm giving a whole lot here. We really
yeah,
haven't given ourselves, because you tapped in it when you opened up the anger part of it, because we're not supposed to be angry. So
mhm.
when we say it's not, how do we go through that process and truly embrace it?
So anger is a part of it, right? A huge part of it. And let me say this: it depends on how your person left, right? Um, my anger looks different if my person is 95, they had a long illness, they transitioned in peace, we were all by the bedside, we got to
Mhm.
sing Kumbaya, right?
Mhm.
Versus a sudden death that you were completely unprepared for, and then a tragic death of
Mhm.
murder, right? Of suicide, of those things that then it's harder to grasp. And you have so many unanswered questions that you probably will never have answered. Anger looks different in all those spaces, right? It's allowing yourself the comfortability of the emotion to let it do its work.
Lord have mercy.
We are so uncomfortable with anger in particular because we think we always have to act on it. So anger is this emotion that can teach us, oh my gosh, so many different layers of ourselves. But I have to sit in it. I have to be able to just say, I am pissed off. This should not have happened. Ain't no explanation for it. Don't come at me with the better place. Don't come at me with all of these other things. I don't want your silver lining. I actually want to just sit here and be mad.
Mhm.
And you have to often give yourself permission to do that. One thing that I often talk about is permission because 9 times out of 10, nobody's giving us permission to grieve. And no one allows us to grieve messily. We
Mhm.
want grief to be in a nice little box, a little
Mhm.
nice little tear falls. I say,
Mhm.
oh my, oh, I miss him. Oh, but I'm going to keep going and everything's going to be okay. We don't want the messy grief,
Mhm.
right? We don't want the grief where I'm challenging God. where I'm angry at God of how could you? Why would you?
Why
If
would
you
you?
love
Yes.
me, this is what you do to people. We
Yes.
don't want that kind of, because I don't know how to handle that. See, I got to sit with somebody that can be able to house that kind of anger, right? That can house that and be like, this is okay too to be here because
Mhm.
God is not moved by my anger. My anger doesn't take him off his throne. It doesn't stop him from being God. He's okay. He can handle it. Is he not God? That my
Mhm.
little anger is going to move God? I mean, come on, let's calm down a little
Yes.
bit. So you get to be angry. You get
Yes.
to sit with it until it's not over, right? Until it is over, excuse me. And it ebbs and flows. That's
Mhm.
the thing, also. It's not a one time I feel anger. And then I'm like, let me make peace. Let me do my stuff. And then it's never coming up again. It's going to rise again
Mhm.
because something's going to trigger where you say, this is unfair. And a lot of times the anger is from feeling like it's unfair and feeling afraid.
There it
And
is.
that fear and helplessness, it can cripple us because we're so unused to being in those weakened spaces. So what do I go to is I go to anger to gain my power. I go to anger and able to
Mm.
say, I'm not broken. I'm not weakened. This hasn't crippled me. I'm not crawling on the floor. I'm just mad, right? And mad is so much more comfortable than sad. Mad is so much more comfortable than distraught and afraid and scared and helpless. Those are emotions we do not want to touch,
Mhm.
especially Black folks.
Mhm.
We stay away from those. We have to always feel
Mhm.
strong and
Mhm.
empowered, and we can handle it and put the weight of the world on our shoulders.
Mhm.
We get to be human too.
No, we
We get
don't.
to be crippled.
No, we don't. No, we
You
don't.
see, like we get to do that too, but we have to give ourselves
Mhm.
permission.
Mhm.
And if no one else tells me that I get to sit in my anger, I got to tell myself that I get to sit here.
This is so awesome and so needed. So, how do we sit in our anger and not feel guilty about the anger?
Mm, mhm. So first, you got to figure out why is guilt attached to anger. See, grief. What I've learned is this little friend of ours, right?
Mm.
She comes along and she's like, "There's so many things I want to teach you about yourself that you never could have learned outside of being in this space. So why are you afraid to feel? What have you attached to feelings?" And we can list all of them, right? So,
Mhm.
what have you attached to anger that makes you feel guilty that you're angry? Who told you that anger, in and of itself, I'm talking about just the feeling,
Mhm.
is something that you should be ashamed of something you have to bury, of something that is not allowed the same weight, the same breath, the same space as sadness, as happiness, as joy? Because aren't these all the breath of who we are? So I get to just let it be. So how do I sit? I have to first call it what it is. What is this? This is anger, but what is anger? Anger is that thing that makes me feel like something unfair happened to me. Anger is it touches my pain points, right? And because we all have different pain points, anger is going to come at different places, right? So I have to be willing not to just get overrun by the emotion itself, but have enough space to be able to question myself of why is it there and how have I labeled it? Because how we label it is how we deal with it. If
This
anger is something, right,
yes, yes,
that's
yes.
not allowed,
Mm.
slap my hand for feeling it.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
anger is something that says that means you don't have faith, then slap my hand. If anger means that all these other things, I'm not allowed. But if anger means it's just an emotion like every other thing, and I have the right to be angry that my person is gone and that my life is forever changed, then I can sit in it and
Hmm.
let it teach me all the layers that are underneath it.
What has anger taught you?
Anger has taught me, first I was scared of it, to be honest, right? Because I'm a good church girl, and I didn't even know what it was. I knew I was mad. I knew I couldn't believe it. I remember, and I'll never forget the drive home from my father's house, and I told God how mad I was, how angry I was, how disappointed that He would make this choice, right? And I said a whole lot of other things that I can't remember, but I remember hearing Him say,
Mm.
"Shut up for a minute." Oh, okay, right? And in that moment, I was able to breathe and be
Mhm.
quiet. But me being me, I came again. God, really? This is what we do, right? But giving myself permission to be angry, especially with God, because that's who I was mad at. Because then nobody
Thank
do
you.
it
I want you to
but Him.
pause right
Okay.
there because that is so important. And I think it actually addresses part of this question that Hyacinth asks. Why is guilt attached to anger? Okay. Um, and a lot of that is because we are angered and angry with God, but we're not
Yes.
supposed to be. And we surely can't say that's what it is.
Can't say it. But that's what it is, right? And so when I realized you are who I'm angry with, because you give life and you supply death. You heal and you choose not to heal. And all of this breath is from you. And you took her breath.
Hmm.
Why? Right? And the biggest equation I had to solve was, if you loved me, how could you do this to me? Because you knew what it would do to me. I get you love her. I
Mhm.
also get she's in a better place. I get she's out of pain, misery, in the presence of you she adored. But what about me? Why didn't I matter? Why? How is this love? And so I posed God the question. I said, "Yeah, I heard all this stuff. You're the mother to the motherless, father to the fatherless, all this other stuff, right?" I said, "How are you going to do that? How will you be her breath? How will you be her scent? How will you be in her embrace? How will you be her support when no matter what I went through, she was there, my cheerleader, my everything, my soft
Mhm.
place to fall? Tell me, you up there, how you gonna do that? And I'm gonna just sit and watch and wait for you to do it and see. Because if you don't, this is how bold and crazy I was. If you don't, that gives me permission to walk away from you.
Hmm.
Now I can't say that to no good church people. You know I couldn't reveal that, right?
Right,
So
right.
it was me and God fighting for a long time, for years. And for years. Mine wasn't quick. So that's why I have so much patience with people.
Yeah, and I completely thoroughly agree. I want you to, and we want to come back to that because I'm going to ask you um, how you made peace with it. But Heisen asked another very very powerful question here. But who said that? We were
Hmm.
taught not to question God. Why?
Why?
Why were
Right?
we taught that? Why?
It
Why?
a pure fallacy. Nothing scriptural, right? If our beliefs are based on the scriptures, as we say, the people in the scriptures challenge God. David, perfect example. Why, God? How long? If this is what you were going to do to me, why did you even let me be born? Did not Job say those same things? Right? Did Jeremiah not question him as to why? Did Jesus, our Savior, not ask God why? How did we get to the place that we don't get to question a God that wants to be known? And how do you get to know someone if you cannot ask them questions? If
So let
you
me
want to
ask
know the depth of me.
so let me ask you this. So would you say, because you opened up with your understanding and investigation of other cultures and their understanding of death,
Yeah.
and and etc. Would you say that part of it is it's used to control and manipulate our relationship with God so that we don't truly understand
Mm,
death, life,
mm, mm.
and our relationship with God? What would you say to that?
You know what I think? I think that, and I'll speak of our culture in particular, right? I think we did not have the luxury
Mm,
to stand in anger with God because so much was happening to us, right? You start from historical, right? Slavery, keep going, and you go all the way up, right, to our living, right, our generation. There's been a lot of turmoil. It's been a lot of pain. It's been a lot of trying to suck it up.
mhm,
The moment you give yourself permission to question God, you sit in a space of such vulnerability
mhm,
because I need God to care about me. And when I question his care, that means something there may compute that I don't matter.
mhm,
And we needed God at least to love us. We needed God at least to accept us. We needed God at least to say, okay, my hand is on you. See, if I'm not secure in a relationship, I can't toil. If I'm not secure in a relationship, I can't go back and forth with you. I can't argue with you. I can't
that's right,
get
because it's not
mad
safe.
at you.
It's not
It's not
safe.
safe.
Hmm.
So, though we have carried God, we have not been safe with God. The people in the scriptures were safe with God no matter what was happening. As to why, they could question him, they could toil with him. They could say, you're not fair. They could say,
Hmm.
well, why would you allow me breath if this is what the life you were going to give me? But because we're also uncomfortable with confrontation, right? We imagine Job's confrontation with God
Hmm.
to act as if God was coming against Job and that he should never have questioned him. And
Hmm.
in my studying of this, because I really look deeply into lamenting,
Hmm.
right? And what that
Hmm.
is, and that's that lost language with
Hmm.
God, right?
Hmm.
My God, that was the most beautiful thing when I had different vision when I read through Job. I saw Job challenging and scared
Yes.
and confused and questioning. I'm a good man. I didn't deserve this, right? We don't want to call ourselves ever good, how we've been taught, but I'm a decent person. I didn't done the right things, right? How could you do this to me? So I'm questioning God, but look at the beauty of that relationship. When God at the end, right? He got to chapter 38 and he said, answer me.
Hmm.
Wow. We're
Hmm.
scared to say that to God. Answer
Hmm.
me. We didn't went through all these chapters now. I didn't talk to these folks. All this. I need an
Hmm.
answer from you.
Hmm.
God was beautiful enough to tell him about who he was. Joe, this is why you don't have to worry about all that happened because you missed who I was.
Hmm.
See, we don't know who God is as to why we're afraid. He's like, Job, do you know I'm holding everything together? Do you know that I created the sea and I put a playpen around it? Do you know I taught all the animals how to feed their babies? Do you know that I am the one who orchestrates it all? You don't have to worry about me and my intentions. I got this. This is the God that you've been serving. This is the God who you put all your faith and trust in. I needed God to do that for me. So I said, let me challenge you, God. Let me say, show me who you are. Because where I'm standing right now, you seem kind of cruel. And
Hmm.
you seem like you don't love and care about me. And so the journey with God began as my journey with grief began.
Mm.
And we walked them side by side. And so I'm super comfortable with grieving, and I'm super comfortable with the God I know I love now. The God who's my God, right? Not my handed down God from other people's, but he's mine. So when I am in full throes of emotion, when I am angry and depressed and anxious and scared and lonely and all of the other things, I get to be it because I know who God is, and he's never uncomfortable with me being my real self and my real emotions that he also created. That he says, I will walk you through it. I will be your breath when you can't breathe. I
Mhm.
will grab your hand when you feel like you're by yourself. When you're panning and wanting to embrace, I'm gonna embrace you. But I had to open up myself to allow God in, and I had to open up my emotions to give God the entirety of who I was and where I was.
So awesome. This is awesome. Hyson says, this is some good eating. Ah, so let's unpack that.
Yes.
Let's unpack how the development, because you said a mouthful, development of your relationship of God, not the handed down God, meaning your other folks' relationship with God, but the God of your
Yes.
understanding.
Yes.
And sometimes the God of your understanding, well, most times the God of your understanding, it goes beyond the God of your ancestors or your forefathers or those in your lineage, and it can
Yes.
create another upset of anger. So,
Mm-hmm.
how in the unpacking of all of this do you did you get to making that peace, because you still got that unsettling and you still got to keep going on with life because the bills got to be paid, and the children need you, and
Yes.
you got to
Yes.
show up, you got commitments. How do you do that, Natalie?
I allowed myself time every day to sit with it. I didn't rush it. I said it's going to be here until it ain't here, right? 20 something years later, it's still here. But I really did carve out time. And I jumped into, I believe our emotions are like little people, okay, within me. So I was able to talk to every little part. And I allow whatever to come up and give it space. So there's times when you can't do this because you got life, you got
Mhm.
work, you're in public, you got obligations. But what you can do is when it comes up, you let that little part know, I'm gonna get back to you. And I made a commitment to always come back to them. So my emotions, I talk to all the time. I know when it's space for me to be in them. I know also when I have to push them down because it ain't the space, right?
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
know I'm going to come back to you. So what I teach in my grief group is create sad time. And if you have to do it every day, so sad time, think of it 15, 20, 30 minutes a day where you really give yourself space for the sadness, for the anger, for the all the other emotions, right? And you just sit with it. What am I feeling? Do I need to cry? Do I need to scream? Right? How do I get this out of me? Because grief is this thing that is within us, right? It's the thoughts, it's the feelings, it's the emotions. Everybody grieves. It's the mourning, which is taking the grief out loud, that we
Mhm.
are ill equipped in, right? Because it is the mourning that everybody tells us to shut up. Everybody
Wow.
tells us, okay, it's enough. I don't want to hear your stories no more. I did all that stuff, right? But if we can perfect our mourning of whatever I'm feeling and I take it out of me, it doesn't have to always be tears. It can
Mhm.
be coloring, it can be jogging, it can be going out and having yourself, a good breakfast. It could be you talking to your girlfriend. It could be you chatting it up with the guys. It could be a breath of things that you do, but you have to, on purpose, get it out of you. And the on purpose is really essential in the grieving process, because you have to say, I'm feeling this now. Where do I need to put it? And when I figure, oh, I can put it here and here and here, I'm not afraid of releasing it. But we all need at least one person that can hold space for us without anxiety, that will let us just sit there, let us say the most ridiculous stuff, right? That will let us just moan and groan and get out of control, and we'll just be,
Mhm.
you got
Mhm.
permission.
Mhm.
And when we have somebody that can do that, it shifts
Yes.
the game.
Yes. Yes, this is good. This is good. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you've liked, and if you can text somebody, send the link to somebody, let them tune in. We got a little more time. If you have any questions, make sure you put it in the chat so that we can ask. Natalie, I know you have heard something that has stirred you up, ignited a flame, made you think, and we want you to ask your questions. Make sure you ask your questions. Nellie, that's good. So you say we have to be on purpose, intentional purpose to sit with the sadness and the anger.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
what I've learned when we don't do that, it's gonna show up anyway.
And you will have no control over it. You will have no control over it, right?
None.
It's grief is the most patient friend. She
Mhm,
will wait for you, right?
mhm,
She's like, oh, you don't want to do me. You want to do all this other stuff. You want to be busy. Okay. You want to say it's not hurting. You said you done figured it out. You with Jesus. You done all this stuff, right? And she's like, I'll be here until and
mhm,
whenever you're ready to do this. But I
mhm,
am gonna have to be dealt with, right? And we would, if we would embrace her, our lives would look different. Because what we know, grief is not just the loss of a person, it's the
mhm,
loss of anything. And so we have all these grief ghosts that are living in our house, that are tapping on our shoulders, that are running the game, but we're scared and we're afraid. And that ghost just blows a little bit, and we're like, oh my Lord, I cannot handle, deal with. And we create labels and false illusions so we don't have to deal with our life of loss.
mhm,
We've been losing since we've been born,
mhm,
right? But
mhm,
kids know how to mourn. That's
mhm,
what you think a tantrum is. That
mhm,
2 year old that you took that toy away, and they cried and they kicked and they screamed and they're like, this is not fair. That's called mourning. Okay? That's
mhm,
them kicking it up, saying, I don't like this feeling within me and I'm going to get it out of me. And what do? Stop all that crying. Go sit in the corner. We're not acknowledging it. It ain't that bad. And we hear those same lines throughout our whole life, no matter what we lose. Hurry up. Get over it. Continue on.
and we find ourselves stuck, right? We're
Yeah.
we're we're moving, we're active,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah. Yeah.
engaging, we're making all the appointments, but we're stuck.
We're stuck.
And we're creating habits that are unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
that is creating a backlash in our personal life, with our family, with our community,
Yes.
with the world at large, or in our physical body. You know, how, Cassandra says, I can't stand that. To
Can't
get over
stand
it.
it.
I can't, okay? To get
This is
over it.
where we're going. Ugh.
What in the whole world, what in the whole ham and cheeses, get over it. No, okay. Right. What is get over it? So Natalie, what are some additional tools? You guys have put your questions in the chat. Put your questions in the chat so we can ask her. Let me ask you here. Let me ask you this, because this was a question that was DM'd.
Okay.
Uh, how how do you deal with the guilt of not talking to a loved one regularly? Um, they say we were very close. I'm
Mm-hmm.
paraphrasing. We were very
Mm-hmm.
close, and we didn't talk regularly. When we talked, it was like, no big deal, and then they were suddenly taken
Gone.
away.
Yeah. So guilt is a common space in grief. almost everybody will go through guilty phases, right? Guilt that I didn't pick up the phone, guilt that I wish I would have got you care, guilt that I didn't do X, Y, and Z, guilt that I didn't spend much enough time. I mean, I think enough time like probably wrangles all of us because we're busy people, right? And unfortunately, the way we have it set up, our relationships always come last.
Mhm.
So when someone passes away, it is that loud alarm that I missed this opportunity and I never get to do it again, right?
Mhm.
So the guilt with that, guilt is you did something wrong, right?
Mhm.
What you really are is just missing them.
That's good.
It's important that we label things properly because you can feel bad that you didn't talk as much as you wish you could have, right? But the truth of it is, we have relationships set up differently, right? So I have some people that I talk to every day. I got some people once a week. I got some once a month. I got some twice a
Mhm.
year. But that was our relationship.
Right.
So to place, oh, I should have talked to them every day because I had some, and say our relationship had flaws because it was twice a year, but that was what we did. And when we got
Mhm.
together, we talked for 10 hours, right? We could spend the whole thing catching up. It's okay for our relationships to look different.
Mhm. Mhm.
What we do is we learn from it. So if, and this is what we don't do from
Mhm.
grief, we don't learn, right? We learn at the funeral. Or we say at the funeral, oh, we
Mm.
got to get together more. Oh, that's right. I'm gonna honor you. I'm this. Life is short, right?
We do it at every funeral. No.
And everyone, life is short. I got to get better. We got to connect more.
Mhm.
But the reality is, we have created a cosmos for our lives.
Mhm.
Now, could we improve it? Yes. But you have to ask yourself, was this relationship in a bad place because we didn't talk all the time? Or were we both comfortable as we didn't talk all the time? Because
Yes.
if you both were comfortable and you both feel connected and you didn't feel like one was kind of like, saying, I don't want to deal with you, but I'm running
Right.
after you and you didn't,
Right.
that's a totally different thing, right?
Two different
You
things.
got to
Yes.
make peace with your relationships,
Mhm.
even the bad ones, right? Because in relationships, we have good and bad within it, right? We have periods of time when we're really good. We got periods of times when you get on my very last nerve. We got period of times when I want to talk to you, like, and there's sometimes I don't feel like talking to you, right? Because I'm in a different space and you this, and we fight and we argue and we come back together and we connect. That's human relationships. We don't have to make our relationships angelic because the person passed away. We get to say this was the real of the relationship. This is
Mhm.
why I miss you, right? I do miss that we can't banter back and forth. I miss the times when we fall out, but we come back together again. That built the relationship for you. Let that be the relationship.
This is good because you know why, Natalie, this is good? Because there are relationships that we grieve and we're in loss that and the people are still alive, but you know that you're not in relationship anymore. And it's the healthiest thing for everybody
For you.
involved.
Yes.
Okay. And so but there's still a grief or there's a sadness and
Mhm.
there's a process that you even go through with that. So this is perfect even as we talk about that. And then if in
Yeah.
fact something happens where one of the parties transition out from this life, then you have to now deal
You
with that
do.
layer of it.
Yeah.
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 And it's allowing ourselves to be human always.
Hmm.
Don't take your humanity from yourself. And that's one thing I did learn from grief. I am a full human. And I'm going to be fully human. I don't need to deify myself. I don't need to act like I'm bigger than or better than. I'm just in this human space, living out each day with the amount of information and knowledge I have in the day, right? I can't apply what I've learned now, right, at this
Hmm.
big old age to what I was when I was in my 20s. I
That
didn't
part.
know.
Yes.
I didn't know, but I wasn't
Yes.
supposed to know either. I was supposed to mature. I was supposed to grow. I was supposed to learn. Life teaches us. Let life teach you without feeling guilty that you didn't know the lesson 10 years ago.
That part. That part. We have another question here. I can't stop thinking there was something I could have done to help my loved one. They may have still been here if I
Oh,
had was
Lord.
able to help them.
Yes.
So I feel guilty that I was not able, and I'm angry about it.
Hmm. Man, I went through that with my mom.
Mhm.
Oh, it was crazy because it was like, now she had a autoimmune disease, right? Never was supposed to take her out. That's not what hers was. It was just, pains, aches, that kind of thing. But it was like,
Mhm.
okay, we're gonna find this doctor. We're gonna help you do that. But mind you, I'm in my 20s. Don't know nothing about no healthcare and nothing else. But okay, I'm gonna try to help you. Man, I went over that over and over and over again. Like, was there something I could do to help her? Was there something I could do? If I did this, she would be here. And then if you connected to God, you ain't got that kind of power, girl. When is somebody's time? Is somebody's time. He said you cannot retain the spirit on the day of the death. I don't have that kind of power. As much as we love, as much as we desire, as much as we want somebody, no human has another amount of power to keep a person here.
Mhm.
We do what we can and we leave
Keep
the
them
rest
here
to
or
God
change them.
or change them.
Mhm.
Right? And that's where, if I have that understanding, then I'm
Mhm.
like, well, God, you could have done some work, but you did not do what I wanted you to do. And so I got a battle with him. But in that, I take it off of me because I don't have that power.
Mhm.
None of us, yeah, if y'all, anybody listening, you don't have the power to keep anybody here.
Mhm.
If
We
we
don't.
believe
Yes.
that we have an appointed time with death, right? That was given at birth, I can't change their appointment. That's between them and God, not me. Now I can forever wish their appointment wasn't their day, but I
So
don't have the
Natalie,
power to
you
change it.
just opened the door. You did it. You opened the door. Why? So we are all are appointed, have an appointment with death, but then there's also where it is said that there's premature death, and so that's where that disappointment and anger comes in.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so when you put it in the context of that, um, and allowing, because you figure, even when you talk about children or murder or things of that nature, those are horrific. Or you even talk about the transatlantic slave trade, all that was lost at the bottom of the ocean,
Yes.
all that was lost once here. You talk about other cultures that have lost, you know millions and thousands and hundreds of people. How do we, so I didn't brought a real full circle for you. How do we make peace with that? Because we're in a time, um, and let me say this, I'm going to have a little transparent moment here. um, One of the things, and I think Heisen asked the question earlier, and we kind of touched on it. A lot of our belief system is definitely around how we've been taught to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so become, and we have questions when we're younger, but as we start to grow and experience life in a different type of way, we get in conflict
Mm-hmm.
because stuff is not adding up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not adding up. And so of course, in the not adding up, where some, depending on whatever you were reared in the religious world, we don't question, we just
Yeah.
accept and we push and suppress. So in the confines of all of that, how did you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
make peace with that and bring it to, I hope this is making sense to you. Bring it
It's making
to,
sense.
yeah, yeah. How do we make peace with that for the listener that is listening to this and saying, yeah, okay, that sounds good, but okay, yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh,
So I'll hit on the first part you said about premature death, right?
mm-hmm,
It's premature for us. It
mm,
doesn't mean it was premature for them, right? Now, this is, of course, with if you're in the Christian context of that God. right?
Mm-hmm.
And scripture, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in another of the belief, you have another way of looking at things, but I'll stick to what I know. So in that, it was premature for us.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's hard to digest because it's like, what? Right? I mean, my husband, his little sister, she passed away at 4, right? From a tragic accident. That's premature for us. Flipped the family upside down. It was awful, right? But this is where I have to fight with God. This is where God has to speak to me the why in it, if he's so kind to, right? For me, how did I make peace? It wasn't so much, and this may sound weird, it wasn't so much the peace of her passing. It was the peace of how do I live without her?
Mm-hmm.
And that's continuous.
Yes.
I'm still making peace. I figured out that I don't need to try to close the hole.
That's
So I
good.
have a hole in the shape of my mom that will stay with me until I die. I just accepted the hole was going to be there. So now this is my life, a life with a hole of someone who I love dearly and shaped me, right? Now you look at it that way, I got a lot of holes, but I also got a big heart. And I decided to keep loving, to keep caring, to keep figuring this life out, to keep trying to make purpose of it with the holes though. So
Mm.
I'm bold in the holes. I never need to close them. I accept they never will be closed,
I
right?
love it.
And that's how I've made peace with it.
I love it.
I'm a holy girl in more ways than one.
I
In more
love it.
ways
I
than one.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Now,
Yeah.
listen, audience, do you have any questions? I know you guys sitting here getting fat, eating good, and the intention, of course, is that it is uplifting your spirit, is giving you some relief and some understanding in the
Yeah.
process and the journey, so you're not feeling guilty about the anger, so that you're not feeling like something's wrong with you
Yeah.
because it should be over by now.
Mm,
it,
yeah.
it's it's not going nowhere. You learn how to
Lifelong.
be. It's lifelong. We learn how to live with the holes, and nobody else can fill that hole.
No.
And in the context of a parent, in the context of a loved one, in the context of a friend, in the context, it won't be filled by anything or anybody on this
Anything.
earth. It
Nope.
just won't. But we learn and we find ways to give back and support and heal others in the journey. Any questions? Any other questions at all? Before we let her, y'all got an opportunity before we let her go now. Natalie, I want to thank you. This has been powerful. You started your support groups, if I'm reading it correctly, in
Hmm.
2007. Was it 2007? The support groups with grief for loss. She has a wonderful grief for loss uh, a group on Facebook. And then she's also a coach as well, a life and grief coach that helps you and supports you through the process, through the journey of grief and loss and sadness and all the compartments that go along with it. Any final words you would like to leave with the audience?
I leave with you guys. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to find out what is underneath it all, why you're afraid of it, why you feel guilty, why you can't feel. Sit with somebody that can help you in that space because we're in a very vulnerable space when this happens and we do need support. Don't deny yourself support because you need to be strong. Get the support, right? Get somebody to help you navigate it because it will open you up to all different ways of living that, as I said, grief is a friend. If you allow her to teach you, she's going to show you so much more than just this one deathbed. She's going to open you up to how you can live better, right? And this becomes a choice because How I choose to do it is where I have the power. I had no power in them leaving, but I do have power in choosing how I live now that they're gone. Let it be messy. We're just humans.
That's it, and that's all. We's humans. We are having a spiritual experience, but we humans, and we don't have to paint everything to be perfect. That's the bottom line. We don't have to be perfect in
Yes.
everything, the imagery of perfect. So I want to thank you again. This has been a dynamic conversation.
Thank you
Uh,
for having
and
me.
yeah, thank you for being here. Again, she is on, we'll have all of her information in the body of the YouTube description where you can reach out and you can connect with her. And of course, also you can connect with us at Center of Empowerment, and we will get you connected to her if you would like to get connected to her. And we just say thank you. Now, don't go nowhere. We got a quick little, let's see, let me do it. Let's see. I'm learning, y'all. I'm learning this technology. I'm learning. Here it is. We got a quick little thing right here, and we'll be right back. Let me partner with you as you walk through this next chapter of your life. Let us unpack the blocks, the blind spots together and get to the next level, your divine purpose in this season. Let's help you shed the weight that distracts from you living in fulfillment. Meet me in my healing space. Confirm with me today. Again, thank you. We thank you for being here. And next week we have coming. We'll be talking with Tracy Holmeyer, and she will be talking about the somatic healing process of dealing with the trauma and the grief and the different things. And then the following week we have. You know what? I need to be looking at the schedule. We got a lot of stuff lined up for you. So make sure you go and look at the. Here we go. Let's see. Tracy Holmeyer is next Thursday, and then that's the 24th. And then May, we have Dr. Linda Hodo. She will be talking about her experiences as a caregiver for both her parents walking through the grieving process. And then on Thursday, May 8th, we have the one and only Dr. Jewel Diamond Taylor, and she will be talking about living with the pain of losing a child. And that will be our Mother's Day special. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next go round. God bless you.